Hey everybody, Kyle Sasser here, and it is everyone's favorite time of the month. That's right, real estate market statistics time. These real estate statistics are for the Dayton Metro area for March 2024. Now you're probably asking, Kyle, the report says on it February 2024. Why are you calling these March 2024 numbers? The reason why is because the real estate numbers naturally we can only look at about a month in total. So the most recent numbers we have are from February 2024, but I'm recording this video in March 2024, so I call it the March 2024 stats. The other thing to know about these numbers is that we compare year to year. So we are comparing February 2024 to February 2023. I have been looking at the month-to-month numbers a little bit more than I had historically. I've been doing these videos for, I think, like 7 years now. I've been looking at the month-to-month numbers a little bit more than usual just because the market's been a little wacky since June, July 2022. But it's important to take the month-to-months with a grain of salt because there is a natural ebb and flow to the real estate cycle. Obviously, in wintertime, or a lot of times when the schools are letting out or starting, people are concerned about other things. They're concerned about holidays. They're concerned about getting situated and getting into the new rhythm of the school year. So, the number of homes that go up for sale or that are purchased naturally over the course of 12 months goes up, goes down. So it's important to keep that in context. Now, if you watched the previous 2 or 3 videos, if you've been subscribed to the channel or keeping up with this, you know that I have been making some predictions for what is going to happen in 2024. So this month is where we should start to see some shifts compared to previous months. And by and large, I didn't see anything too surprising. Things are continuing as expected with these February numbers. Kind of the true tale of the tape is going to be next month's video in April. That should really cement if the expected price increases that I've been talking about are going to start to develop. But I don't see anything that contradicts that initial impression of 2024 in these numbers. So basically, the current month numbers are basically confirming of what I suspect will be happening in 2024 here. So let's dive into these Dayton real estate market statistics. Total number of closed sales was 949. That was a 14.8% increase from 2023. Median sales price climbed 13.4% from $194,000 to $220,000. Average sales price went up 13.5% from $227,005 to $257,739. And a median percent of original list price was up 0.8% to 97.9%. Median time to sale was actually down 5.5% to 52 days. I like to do a little bit of backwards-ish math on that. So we don't actually have some other MLSs have a time to contract field because they actually track when a house goes under contract, which is important. But for the Dayton MLS, we don't have that. All we have is a time to sale. So that's basically how long it took from the house to go on the market, be marketed, hold the open houses, how long to go under contract, and then how long to complete that contract. So typically, I like to knock 30 days off of this. So 52 days minus 30, 22. So we're currently at 22 days on market. Now, there's a lot of areas of the Dayton Metro where things go a lot faster, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But by and large, if we're looking at the whole Metro, time to sale is 52 days. Time to contract is probably in the 22-day range there. Total number of new listings was up 14.1% to 1,085. And total active listings was down 6% to 1,049. And the doom and gloom section, foreclosures and short sales, there was a total of 8. Now, I do want to touch on the median sales price over the course of the year because we have had a bit of an oscillation. And so the peak this year was in August and July. So July we had 235, August we had 233. And we've kind of slid as we've started the school year, we had fall, and we're in the midst of winter right now. And the prices have slid. They did not slide as hard as they did last year. Last year we got all the way down to 195. Yeah, so February 2023 was 194 for the median sales price. So we went from 235 and we went all the way down to 206,000 in January and have bounced back to 220,000. So you can kind of see there we have that 6 months oscillation following the year. Normally, we have enough inventory that it doesn't affect the median sales price so much. We have enough inventory to absorb all the buyers in the springtime and the summertime, and then it relaxes through the wintertime. So we don't usually have as hard of a price swing. But because we have so few homes for sale, comparatively, compared to previous years, that number moves a lot more. This is also kind of backed up by our median percent of original list price received. It was 100% for April, May, June, July, August, and September. After that, it has slid a little bit, went down to 98.5% in November, 97.3% in January, and it's bounced up a little bit to 97.9% now. Total number of new listings. Again, remember this is compared to 2023. So we listed fewer houses in the early part of the year up until July, and we've listed more houses since then. Now, thing to keep in mind there is, basically a lot of stuff stopped June, July 2022. So you kind of have to keep that in mind as we're looking back on these year-to-year dates. Overall, and you can see it here on the chart here, you can see that this is what we're listing now, and we can see that we're still below, 2020 and COVID numbers and all that stuff. We have not recovered completely yet. Now, I do like to dive into the price points because a $1 million house does sell on a slightly different time span than a $200,000 house. That is primarily because of the buyer pool. There's simply more people that can buy a $200,000 house. So those tend to sell for a little bit shorter. And remember, we're looking at median time to sale here, which is, how long everything takes. Getting it listed, marketing it, getting a contract, and then closing. So 150 to 200,000 was down 12.5% to 49. 250 to 300,000 was down 34.2% to 48 days. 300 to 400,000 was down 7.8% to 59. 400 to 600,000 was down 41.5% to 55. And $1 million or more was hanging around at 117 days. Total number of closed sales, some decently optimistic news. Again, we are compared to 2023, which was crazy time still. That was really the first major retraction we'd had in a few years. So we are selling more homes than we were then. So for example, 150 to 200,000, we sold 23.9% more homes, total of 197. 200 to 250,000, we sold 22% more homes for 133. 300 to 400,000 was up 37%, 148. 600 to $1 million was up 106.7%, 31 homes. So that doubled. That's nuts. And then $1 million or more hung out at 6, which was no change. So those are the Dayton Metro real estate statistics for March 2024. So if you remember back to your math class there, average and median, or mean median mode, whatever you want to call it. So averages, you take, let's say, 5 houses, you add up the sales price of all those houses. That gives you the average of those 5 sales. Median is a little bit different. Median, we're trying to figure out where the more of the true midpoint is. And so what median is that is the point at which there is an equal number of homes that sold for more as there were that sold for less. So it does tend to not swing as hard as averages. And the reason why is because averages can be pulled pretty easily if there was a large number of very expensive or very inexpensive homes sold, or even if you just had like one crazy exceptional property that sold for $40 million, that will pull the average a lot more than the median at least. Now, the other downside is since our total number of transactions is a lot lower than it has been historically, both our average and our median has been bouncing around more than it usually does. And so you do have to kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at these numbers and comparing them to previous years. Just there's going to be a little bit more volatility because we're only selling, 60%, 70% of the number of homes that we do normally. So what are things looking like in the Dayton Metro area? What are things looking like in 2024? So kind of want to touch on a couple things here. One is, and I try to explain this to people, statistics tell a story, but they don't tell the story. You really have to, like, the analysis is not just saying, oh, median sales price is up, you know, blah, blah, blah dollars. Like, I see these news stories all the time. That's not how you're supposed to use these. The only way this actually becomes effective is if you know kind of the history of the market, what it's doing, what typical buyer and seller pressures are, and what the different areas and neighborhood sections are. Like, it's one thing to know that throughout the Dayton Metro, the number of new listings is up. It's different when you actually look it up and it's all, you know, like on the north side or the west side, like up Salem or Main Street or Riverside there. The truth is the number of homes for sale are up. It is a little easier to find a house, but it is still difficult, especially in the 675 corridors. So if you're looking in like Oakwood, Belmont, Linden Heights, Patterson Park, Centerville, Beavercreek, Springboro, Washington Township, Bellbrook, there is not a lot for sale out there. That is where a lot of the demand is, and whenever something comes up for sale there, it gets gobbled up quick. So even though it looks like time to sale is 52 days, and if we knock that 30 days off, looks like a 22-day time to contract. That is for the whole metro. The truth is homes in those areas tend to go under contract within a few days to a week. So you have to be on the ball with those areas. That said, there's a few positive indicators in here. You know, the overall inventory is up, so that does mean that there is more to choose from, especially compared to, you know, 2022 when things were super crushed. So far as 2024 goes, though, we definitely are having what looks to be this 6-month oscillation continuing. Basically, the number of homes going up for sale, including new construction, is basically almost even with the number of buyers. And so what happens is, as the number of buyers comes up a little bit, it rapidly chews through the inventory because we only have a few thousand homes. We only have a couple thousand homes. So if you know, you have a couple months where you sell 200 more homes than you list, you rapidly drop the choices. But then again, in the wintertime, when the number of buyers drops a few hundred, then we have that opportunity to build some inventory. There's a little bit more to choose from, and, you know, sellers become a little bit more negotiable. So far as the statistics go, there's nothing to show that 2024 is going to be different from 2023. This is basically confirming what I had talked about in previous statistics videos. So there's nothing in here that is making it look like there's going to be anything else. Obviously, we won't really know until we get the March and April numbers. So, you know, we still have a couple months for this to really firm up, but it's barring any like major economic catastrophe or interest rates hitting like 9%, we should still pretty much hang out in this kind of realm of the 6-month oscillation back and forth. So yeah, the other thing is, if by some chance we get April and May numbers and something looks entirely crazy, I promise you that I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to curb these numbers to prove my hypothesis. And those of you that have been watching this for, you know, 5 years or so know that I do not, generally speaking, try to predict too much further ahead than a month or two. So the fact that I have been talking about what the rest of 2024 is potentially going to be looking like, the last time I started talking like that more longer term thing is about 4 months after COVID. The number of listings versus the number of sales rapidly got out of balance. And what I said at that point in time was, if this continues, we're going to see the number of homes for sale shrink and evaporate, which is only going to put upward pressure on home prices, and we're going to see home prices skyrocket rapidly. And that is what happens. So thank you so much for tuning in for these Dayton Metro market statistics. My name is Kyle Sasser. If you're looking for your own amazing home in the greater Dayton Metro area, I would love to help you out. You can reach me at 937-907-6777. There's also a link in the description down below where you can book a chat at the time that works best for you. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Kyle Sasser, and I'll talk to you soon.